of the deck list you have, so let's just watch.
All right. The Modern Seed on the left side, we have Nick Allain, Amulet Titan, Kevin Therrien, Mono Black Aggro, and Craig Stillman on Team of Reclamation. We'll be watching him here first. We'll get those arrows in the right spot. Harlan Fear coming off a top 4 last weekend on Demir Warza. And we have Dan Jessup on Salted Lyrium. And as we mentioned, Zach Allen on Azorius Control.
Yeah, this should be a relatively interesting matchup. Simply put, the Azorius Control deck just needs to get down a Teferi Time Raveler or something to really slow down the mana generation from Wilderness Reclamation. But the extra mana generated by things like Growth Spiral and Euro just really push this deck ahead on mana. And whenever you're playing a blue v blue deck, usually who has the most mana is usually going to win.
There's a shock on turn 2 from Stillman, and you see an end step Growth Spiral. Allain just making land drops. And an opt to join after a Castle Vantress put in off the Spiral.
I don't know the Stillman guy, but he's playing crisp. Tapping it quick, making decisions quick. Love it. This guy's probably played this deck for a while.
Now, this is definitely one of those decks that you got to play pretty quick. I think it's going to take some time when you start untapping your lands a couple times a turn.
Oh, for sure.
Here's an Omen of the Sea for Zach Allen. Zach pretty big on this card. Nice update from Theros Beyond Death.
Which is a good card. I mean, look, you saw how much Discovery Dispersal saw play in the last year since it was, or year and a half since it's been printed and Return or Ravnica. Oh God,
I believe that it is
it's not
in
Return of Ravnica.
Guilds of Ravnica.
Guilds of Ravnica, excuse me. And like just seeing effectively an instant speed version of Discovery Dispersal on an enchantment that has an extra ability is pretty good. Like obviously putting stuff in the graveyard with Discovery Dispersal was like pretty important in some decks. For the most part, people are just playing it like a 2-mana preordained, and that's exactly what Omen of the Sea is.
Players trading some land drops. We saw Allain decline to crack the Omen as he went to his 4th turn for playing a Plains. Allen's just going to activate Castle Vantress. Some nice card selection there. Hand was a bit heavy on lands going in. He's picked up a Storm's Wrath. Now you see Allain fire off a Chemist's Insight end step. That'll resolve.
He got the real-life Moto bug, where he scryed a Storm's Wrath to the bottom and then immediately drew another one.
Possibly a huge pickup for Allain. A Teferi Time Raveler enters the hand, but he's not going to go in on it just yet. He'll pass with 5 mana up.
No, if he has any experience in this matchup, he'll know that this Team of Rec deck probably has a little bit of counter magic at its disposal. Something like Fast Intervention on it would be pretty bad because it would leave his shields down for basically an entire turn. And that turn can involve Wilderness Reclamation, which is kind of like getting a whole extra turn after that.
Saw another Scry 2 to the bottom with Stillman's Castle. Goes to his turn. Goes for an Uro. Draws a card. Puts a Temple of Epiphany on the battlefield. Scries once again. A lot of scrying in this teamer strategy.
Yeah, they play a lot of temples. Castle Vantress.
Shocks for a Stomping Ground is the land for turn. Goes to 19. Passing with 4 mana at the ready.
Yeah, and this is just holding up Fast Intervention for 2. Or at the very least bluffing it. I'm not positive he has it in his hand. I think he does, though.
We see Allain fire off the Jumpstart on Chemist's Insight in step. Discarding a...
Shatter the Sky.
Shatter the Sky, the new Day of Judgment effect.
Yeah, I really like that card. People thought it was kind of meh, but 4-mana Wraths are going to be good. This one has a slight downside, but that's fine. It's outrageous against the aggro decks.
Feel Ruin land number 6, and here's that attempt at Teferi. Like you mentioned, Thassa's Intervention. This is going to be a counter unless you pay 4. A convolute, if you will.
Right, and that if on its face, that's not that powerful. Like 4 mana to counter unless they pay 4 is barely better than something like Syncopate. But it's the fact that it's so versatile because he could have just used it to play a draw 2. Or once he has Wilderness Reclamation going, it effectively becomes a Dig Through Time. And now, though, Zach Allen is tapped out. We could see land plus Explosion for 5 to kill Teferi and draw 5 cards if he has the land.
So Absorb caught the intervention. We'll see what Stillman can do about it. Here's a big tap. The pickup for the turn was Gadwick the Wizened.
Woo!
X equals 5. Don't mind if I do.
Yeah, that's why you don't like tapping out very much when you're playing against this here Team of Reclamation deck. They got quite a few draw X's. Draw X.
Brain Geysers.
Yep. Usually roughly 1 copy of Gadwick, 4 copies of Expansion Explosion. Gadwick doesn't work with Expansion or with Wilderness Reclamation properly, but it's still just good. You saw there. Just has a lot of mana thanks to Euro and Growth Spiral.
Yeah, we saw that card pick up and play in Flash decks And
Right.
those decks care about playing on the opponent's turn, but they just leaned in on Gadwick anyway because the card's that good.
Right.
Elspeth's going to conquer death. That'll answer Gadwick.
I gotta say, I think they did a really great job on the sagas in this set. A lot of them tell a really cool story. Although I will say, the Akroan were not my favorite as far as
Play patterns?
no, play patterns are great. It's the lore behind it, because then I think you get a gold token at the end.
Oh, that's
right?
the first Iroan games you're talking about.
Oh, what did I say?
The Akroan War.
You're right. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, you get a piece of gold, right, for winning the competition.
Vorthos Todd is long
Right.
gone.
But specifically, I believe it's a Crowan athlete from the original Theros block says they don't give medals at the Iroan games.
Well, not anymore.
No,
They ran out of gold.
They ran out of gold.
They gave it away.
Okay, yeah. All right. So some developments. I'll let you keep going, even though I got on distracted. I'm sorry.
Petty Theft bounces to Ferry. The Brazen Borrower shows up, and a Wilderness Reclamation is going to untap all of Stillman's lands. Allain's going to put us to the second chapter of Elspeth's Counter's Death. All of Stillman's non-creature spells are going to cost 2 more for this turn cycle, as the Teferi Time Raveler is redeployed. Big tap of 7. Thassa's Intervention, X equals 5.
Yeah, so he's basically saying counter it unless you pay 6, right? Because he's paying blue, and 3 colorless, and then 2 extra for the Elspeth Conqueror's Death. So Teferi Time Raveler down. No response from Zach Allen, and man, this is looking bad.
Brazen Borrower rumbles across, Allain to 18. And then with the Castle Vantress and a Reclamation online, Teferi has been answered. That's not bad for Stillman. The Elspeth Conqueror's Death does get to pick up the Teferi, but there is the matter of the Borrower from there. Second Wilderness Reclamation for Stillman. That's going to resolve.
It's still going. That static is actually pretty cool here.
Yeah, the Elspeth Conqueror's Death.
Right.
That lasts through Allen's turn and through Stillman's.
All right, so we're going to end step. We're floating all of it. I don't know how much he floated at the beginning, but this is going to be an explosion for a lot and drawing a bunch. And then obviously paying the extra 2 for the Elspeth Conqueror's Death.
Going to be spending some time in the cleanup step. You got to figure. We'll see how many cards he draws.
Now, he's doing it for a bunch and leaving all of his mana untapped because of that second Wilderness Reclamation.
X equals 6. Dovin's Veto. No way to fight over that. You see that an expansion was in Stillman's hand. They could fight over a negate, but Dovin's Veto cannot be countered.
Yup. The counterspell that cannot be countered. That's how you win the counterspell wars, right?
And Elspeth Conquers Death enters Chapter 3, more like Teferi Conquers Death as the Time Raveler shows back up.
Nice. Nice one.
Yeah, they made that one kind of free for me. Like,
Now, interestingly enough, it does come in with an extra counter, so that means that Allain will have the ability to bounce something this turn, and then it won't take him that long to get it back up.
tap of 5. It's another copy of Elspeth Conquers Death. That one has to resolve. Teferi is there. There goes the Brazen Borrower. Teferi goes to 6. Allain passes.
Now, though, we're going to have to see Stillman figure out a way to get this Teferi off the battlefield so that he can turn his Wilderness Reclamations back on.
Going to see him scry off of the castle end step.
Found another Borrower. That's pretty good.
Scries a Steam Vents to the bottom, Borrower to the top. He will draw that.
Storm's Wrath also a nice little way to tag Planeswalkers and minus.
Petty Theft targeting Teferi Time Raveler. Is that good? Absorb is going to catch that. Allain to 21. Looks like Thassa's Intervention and Explosion available for Stillman, but that Teferi means he can't do them for too much mana.
Yeah, you can't do it during the insap, which is where Wilderness Reclamation shines. It's hard to really state how much of an effect Teferi Time Raveler has on these Wilderness Reclamation decks, because as you can see, Stillman has access to a boatload of mana. He's going to be able to do some really cool stuff here. But at the same time, it's not as good as it could be, you know, like with the Wilderness Reclamations, their real strength comes from those untaps at the end step. And here, they're not useless. They let them scry 2 off Castle Vantress, but they're pretty weak.
Someone's going to use that 7 mana to Thassa's Intervention for X equals 5. Saw 5 lands. Plays a Castle Vantress and passes.
That's no good.
Few dead/awkward cards in game 1. You know, he's been on a fair amount of scrying to the bottom. Also a pretty high land count for the deck, but you do hate to see just a selection of 5 lands. He's going to take advantage of these Castle Vantresses with these Wilderness Reclamation triggers. Spend some time scrying here in his end step. He can still do that.
Yeah, and he has the ability to dig so deep with these Castle Vantresses that if there is one card that can't save him, he'll likely be able to find it.
Elspeth Conquers Death goes to Chapter 2, and I think it's hard to overstate how impactful that card has been in this game. Allain's been using that to answer some threats on the other side of the table, and just also rebuying that Teferi Time Raveler. That was huge. Right. And now it works both ways. Teferi picks up the Elspeth Conquers Death. He has that if he ever wants it again. Yeah,
and if Stillman ever deploys another Brazen Borrower, he has the ability to kill it. You know, it's pretty good.
Here's a main phase Omen of the Sea. Card does have flash, but sometimes you want your looks now. Allain not shy on mana.
Yeah, in control decks, it's important with those kind of spells is that if you haven't played a land for turn, if you have enough mana to do everything else, a lot of times you just should play your Opt main phase or your Omen of the Sea main phase in order to hit that land drop so it helps you develop for later turns.
1-1 top, 1-1 bottom. Allain plays Plains and passes. See some more scrying here for Stillman.
Yeah, there are 4 copies of Brazen Bar. He probably needs to find another one, or just more copies of Expansion Explosion so he can, I don't know. Well, that's a hot one.
A little Niv Mizzet Perun picked up there. Shoved 4 cards to the bottom with the castles. Is Niv Mizzet, is the big dragon going to be enough here?
All right, if I am Stillman, I might actually Storm's Wrath first.
He a little shy on red mana.
You're right. Darn.
Niv Mizzet shows up, and then there's a Temple of Epiphany. That would be the 5th red source, though it is tapped here.
But see, if he's just passing turn here, he actually just knows Allain just picked up an Elspeth Who Conquers Death, and he's just going to cast it and eat the Niv Mizzet.
Yeah, that dragon does not appear to be long for this world. See Stillman doing some more scrying, using those reclamation triggers.
Yeah, I think now we're just seeing Stillman just playing Magic and not really going through reasonings behind the plays. He's got so much stuff going on. He knows he's behind. I would have liked to see him wait at least a turn on this Niv Mizzet because here it's just getting obliterated by the Elspeth that Conquers Death.
Update from our Pioneer table. Dan Jessup wins game number 1 over Kevin Therrien.
All right, Birth of Meletis. We go get Plains. That's going to give him an extra couple resources here. The life total not that relevant. The 04 not that relevant. But surging up a Plains is fine. And this card is outrageous against mono red.
Oh, yeah. Also, this one came up. The 04 is a colorless wall, so it even gets around the pro-white 3-1 out of mono red.
Nice.
Pretty brutal.
Doesn't come up often. When stuff like that does, it's hilarious.
Plains found and played. Elspeth will conquer death once again. See you later, Niv Mizzet. Teferi to 4. See Stillman do some more scrying. Scry and scry again. What can you do beyond that, though?
It's like the one thing about this deck that I'm not the hugest fan of in general is that you can have all the mana in the world and look like you're outrageously far ahead. Sometimes, though, your deck's just all air. Here, it looks like he found another Brazen Bar. Let's see if he just main phase and goes for it. Can start off with a Storm's Wrath.
That is where he'll start. Drew Brazen Borrower also knows about a Thassa's Intervention on top of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Stormwrath works. Teferi's down. And Allain can do this a little confidently if he has a counterspell, just because Stillman only has 2 cards in hand.
Right. I believe he does. But he has the Euro in the graveyard still. I forgot about that one. So he's going to be casting this one, and Allain actually has a pretty tough decision because if he lets it resolve, you know, he has to beat the Euro on its face. It's not that hard.
So Euro will escape.
Oh, my God. This is about to be... Oh, this is like moments before disaster. Zach Allen's about to get obliterated.
All right, let's see it. Stillman to 22. Drew a card off the Uro.
All right, so he's going to float 3, untap everything, and he's going to cast an explosion for, or he's going to float a million more.
Actually spending some time scrying.
Okay.
Wants a little bit more to go off of. See, he finds an explosion that he keeps on top, scrying a cements to the bottom. And passes.
Just a little bit of, upkeep there. Just effectively using all his mana to just scry 4. Zach Allen just making sure he taps it correctly. Stillman just trying to play fast because he knows that the clock might end up being an issue. This game has gone on a lot longer than I think either player really thought it would.
Here comes the 0-4 wall. Chapter 2 on Elspeth Conquers Death rolls around. Allain plays an island. Glass Casket. The answer to Uro. Put it in the glasket.
The glasket. Nice, dude.
Big fan of smushing card names like that. I like Ordeliad. That's probably my all-time favorite.
Who hurt you?
Nobody. I'm having a good time. Dream Trawler shows up for Zach Allen.
All right, well, Stillman can fight over this with the Thassin intervention if he wants. Counter unless you pay 4. That's just going to work. I believe there's another expansion explosion on top. So I think what we're about to see, with only 3 mana up from Allain, Stillman, I think, was just trying to protect himself from basically the worst-case scenario.
See a scry 2 here from Stillman. As we head back in his direction, Allain taking a look at the things that have been exiled so far. The Uro escaped, as well as some things exiled by the Elspeth Conquers Death that's been around about 3 times now.
Yeah, so I think the thing we're about to see is floating a boatload of mana, cast Explosion for a lot, and then using the other expansion to copy.
Just a pass of the turn. Hand is 2 expansion explosions and a Brazen Borrower. We're going to see Zach Allen gain that 2 life off of that Saga, and then do the Raise Dead, the Planeswalker Reanimate mode of Elspeth Conquers Death. See if he goes for Teferi or Dream Trawler. I imagine Teferi. It is Teferi. See a response from Stillman. It's going to be Explosion for 7. See if Allain has any response to that.
I'm just really, I don't really know what to say. I was very much expecting Stillman to do this on his own turn with all the Wilderness Reclamation mana available. And here, though, the Teferi coming back from the Elspeth Conquers Death is forcing his hand right now to do it now, or else he just won't be able to do it.
Teferi's back with 5 loyalty. Could it be a matter of setting up some kind of turn where he wants to start by spending more mana at sorcery speed? Is that a possibility?
Perhaps. I think maybe it's a lot of it has to do with just maybe he doesn't want to end up decking himself. He's actually gone through quite a few of his kill conditions, and a lot of his kill conditions but like either force him or kind of draw cards, like the Euros and stuff. So he might not be able to actually win the game with Euro if that's his only kill cards left, you know.
Teferi is going to -3 on Omen of the Sea. Draws a card off that. Recast the Omen. Scries 1 top, 1 bottom.
That's another huge draw for Omen of the Sea in these decks. Giving value to your own Teferi minus is a pretty big deal.
Plays Castle Ardenvale as the land for turn. And back Stillman's way.
So many cards in hand.
You see a Storm's Wrath among them. Could make that attempt at killing the Teferi. That would free up a lot of stuff with these Wilderness Reclamations.
Yeah, how many Teferis has been, though? It's the same Teferi, I'm pretty sure, but this is like Teferi number 5.
And actually, Petty Theft is going to remove that from the battlefield for now. A little cheaper. Temple of Enlightenment, some more scrying.
Do you think he knows his whole deck now?
Yeah, how many times has he scryed this game?
I don't know.
It's got to be upwards of 20.
It's very close to that. And he doesn't have that many cards left. He's resolved Gadwick for 5, an Explosion for 7.
Opt, scry to the bottom, draw a card. Still has 2 expansion explosions in hand.
Yeah, he also just has a boatload of mana if he wants it. So he's going to put that on the stack. He has 8 mana to float. Or I guess maybe he's passing priority. All right. Both on the stack. He's just going for the scries again. I don't get it. I don't know why he's not biting. He could. I mean, now it makes sense because there's like a million mana untapped on the other side, so it's going to be hard to win a counterfight. But, like, there were so many turns in the last, or at least 2 turns in the last 3, where Allain only had 3 mana untapped, and Craig Stillman could have resolved an explosion for X equals 12 plus with protection against 3 open mana and didn't do it.
Is it possible that Stillman is so confident that when he fires off the explosions that it will win the game, that he's in no rush?
I don't know. That's a weird question.
Well, I wonder, which is it? Is he afraid or is he confident? Because he's clearly holding off for some reason, right? He has enough stuff where you feel like he could go.
He could have gone for sure when Allain only had 3 mana up 2 different times.
We have an update. Looks like our modern match is over. Hardened Fear with the 2-0 win over Nick Allain. Dimir Wurza taking down Titan Shift.
And the Mirror Wars deck still quite good. Even without Mox Opal, it's strange how powerful it still is, you know?
Hardened Fear are pretty effective in these team tournaments, too.
Oh, for sure. He above most people, has Wurza on lock.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was last year there was some stretch of his Wurza 75 taking down like 5 consecutive top 8 slots.
Right.
So there's a human token that's shown up. It attacks Stillman. Now we see Teferi Time Raveler showing up once again for Allain. Response with Brazen Borrower, then a response with a big explosion targeting Allain.
Yeah, see, I don't think it's confidence. I think it is fear. I think if it was confidence, he would have just done it for a lot more. Maybe he's afraid of having to move to discard or something if he draws too many cards. But, like, I'll take the perfect 7, you know?
Right. So the explosion works. Allain down to 11. Stillman draws a bunch of cards. Teferi is going to down tick on that Brazen Borrower that was just flashed in.
Makes sense. Keeps the Teferi protected. The static on Teferi is the most important part in this matchup.
Hallowed Fountain Launcher tapped for Allain. Some more sorcery speed action. It's going to be a Narset. Parter Avails. You would have liked that a little bit ago.
Yeah, I don't know how many extra cards that Stillman's drawn this game, but it's got to be upwards of 30.
Narset will down tick. Take a look at some cards. Finds another Teferi Time Raveler.
We're almost to the point where the lethal expansion explosion has to target the opponent for the draw ability, or else you'll deck yourself and get a draw.
Right.
Very close.
Don't see too many drawn games, but it does happen sometimes, and that's a card that can definitely do it.
I definitely drew him one of the first games I played Team Rec on Arena, just because I was like, okay, here's a big expansion explosion.
Just didn't think about it.
And I decked myself. So
Nice.
All right.
All right, Storm's Wrath as well. Stillman will start. Get the Teferi and that Narset out of there.
Yeah.
Human token will go too. And the wall, I guess. Those creatures are dead.
Bye.
I honestly forgot about the wall.
Well, as you should. There's another Scry. He absolutely knows every card in his deck now. Now the question is he going to go for it, or is he just going to keep sitting on his hands?
Lands on tap. Stillman's going to discard.
I think he's just going to try casting like 1,000 Brazen Borrowers.
Yeah, he's got at least 2 Borrowers in hand. Just get those beatdowns. Yeah, I'm getting the impression that Stillman has played this match enough and just thinks that he's got it rolled up.
Maybe.
Teferi comes down. Brazen Borrower will come down in response. Another Borrower will join it. Teferi resolves.
I was about to ask, I'm curious why he didn't target Glass Casket with Petty Theft to draw a card in Euro, but I think drawing a card here is actually just an active detriment.
Might want to keep those cards in the library.
Yeah.
See some scrying. 2 Storm's Wrath. Do you want 0, 1, or 2? It looks like 1. 1 top, 1 bottom.
Now the question, do you just go face? You go Teferi.
Tax Teferi. I suppose you may as well. You got that explosion.
Both are dead.
Shadow the Sky at instant speed.
Yep.
That ain't bad.
It's not.
Steam Vents tapped. Human token made for Allain.
I think Allen's got this one. I think that Stillman had actually just like multiple windows to do really powerful, cool stuff, and chose not to for fear of losing a counterfight or something. And now he's just getting overwhelmed. Too many moving parts from Zach Allen's side.
After seeing that turn, I'm fully on your side.
It's one he's going to have to go back on the tape and rewatch and maybe think about some of his decisions, reconsider his approach to the matchup perhaps. It's just in that one spot, Allain was down to 3 mana twice. With no Teferi on the battlefield, down to 3 mana twice. And Stillman had the ability to expansion and explosion with a piece of protection. Once it was Thassa's intervention, once it was a second expansion explosion, and he chose not to. He chose not to, so once I thought he could hold up Thassa's intervention to counter a Dream Trawler, which he did. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not even that big a deal.
See Chemister's Insight main phase from Allain. How many lands do you have on the battlefield now? Looks like he's around 16.
Yeah, but he can't use that mana until he casts at least 1 or 2 Storm's Wrath to clean up these Planeswalkers.
No, I was saying just Allain.
Oh, Allain. Oh, sure, sorry. Stillman knows I don't know if he knows every card in his deck, but he has seen every card in his deck.
Yeah, there was a shuffle from a Field of Ruin after he'd done a lot of the scrying, but the deck's pretty small at this point. Won't take him long to know every card again.
All right, he's going to untap all his lands at the end of turn with Wilderness Reclamation.
Another human for Allain. What's faster, attacking with your Castle Ardenvale tokens or just letting Stillman draw all his cards?
I think the tokens are slightly faster, but not by a lot.
Narset's going to go down to 1. Allain finds a Shatter the Sky.
This has been a marathon game. If this goes to 3 games in the match, I doubt we'll have a winner.
It will be tough to get 2 more of these. It'll be tough to get 1 more of these. As you see, we are sub 25 minutes now.
Euro's the cast. No draw. You do gain life. And you can cast it from the graveyard thanks to the escape mechanic. And no draw here from Narset is actually a good thing, I think. It's because he's got so few cards in his deck.
There's an escape. Stillman to 24 if this resolves. Looks like it does. Stillman untaps some lands. Going to do some scrying. He does have 2 reclamations. Allen's going to do some scrying of his own. At long last, Omen of the Sea cracked in for that 3 mana ability.
Can I say I don't like standard now?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want, man.
Okay. I don't think that's true.
I know you don't need my permission.
But I want your permission. Daddy Ryan.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Don't say it like that.
Don't say that one. And Elspeth conquers death, and yeah, Zach Allain is going to win that game. Now that's 4 games rather to the good of Fear Jessup Allain. 1 more locks up the match. All right, so now we've been holding our Pioneer seats here. We're going to jump over to Dan Jessup against Kevin Therrien. Therrien on the play here, down a game. Gutter Bones rolls off for the mono black aggro player. Jessup's going to start with a tapped Overgrown Tomb for his Sultai Delirium strategy. Therrien attacks for 2, Jessup to 18. Follow up is a Swamp and a Bloodsoaked Champion. A lot of Savannah Lions these days in the mono black decks.
Oh, yeah, and there's even more that they're not playing that they could play. Gutter Bones is very similar to another card, I believe, from Amonkhet, Dread Wanderer. They do almost exactly the same thing, but I believe that Gutter Bones is slightly more efficient.
Difference is you pay for the zombie card type, Gutter Bones being a skeleton.
Right.
There was a JVP, Jace Prince Prodigy, for Dan Jessup. That got pushed. Now we see a Murderous Rider just cast. Not messing around with the Swift End. There's an attack for 4, Jessup to 14. Therrien just trying to turn up the heat, try to win a quick game 2.
That's Delirium deck popularized by Yo Larson after taking down PT Brussels last weekend. Honestly, I picked up the deck for the first time. Didn't really know what I was doing. 5-0'd my first league. That never happens. Rarely happens.
It is rare.
Deck is super good.
The Delirium payoffs are just very powerful.
Yeah, Emrakul's a heck of a card. But this version, I think, of Delirium has something that a lot of decks I've seen in the past that don't have, which is Satyr Wayfinder. Satyr Wayfinder is a great way to hit your land drops, fill your graveyard, which turns on Traverse Ulvenwald, and a lot of those players had a lot of trouble actually turning it on.
Jessup shocks to 12 for a Watery Grave, passes with 3 mana up. See a pre-combat tap of 4 for Therrien, and it's Rankle, the master of pranks.
Oh, Prankle. He's coming in. He's going to get hit with an Assassin's Trophy.
And that'll work. Therrien goes, finds Swamp. Still has the ability to attack for 6, which is fully half of Jessup's life total.
Yeah, he did a little damage to himself with his lands, but these 1-mana 2/1s getting in a lot of damage. And they're resilient to spot removal, which is really interesting.
Just saw that one of Jessup's cards in hand is Thoughtseize. That one not looking great here.
Nah, that's one I usually side out against most decks in the format. Games tend to go a lot longer after sideboard than usual. Cards like Thoughtseize are great in game 1 because they're kind of a catch-all. I wouldn't call it a filler card, but it is definitely a card that is ubiquitously okay against most decks in the format.
Extremely main deckable.
Right. And then after sideboard, though, it's just a card that if you draw it after turn 5, it's usually dead. But obviously, if you play against combo or control, it's excellent. And that is the matches where you do want to keep them.
Sure. If the opponent's too fast, you can't afford the life.
Right.
If the game goes too long, you can't afford the blank card. Here's an Uro. Jessup's going to gain some life off that. Play a Breeding Pool and a Watery Grave.
And you put the shields down, so if there's another Rankle here, game's over, but doesn't have it.
Did fade. Goes to 3 from this attack for 6. Knight of the Ebon Legion follows up and grows. Just a bunch of swamps for Therrien. No Mutavaults this game.
Yeah, no Castle Lockthorn either. This would definitely be a spot where he'd be willing to pay upwards of 4 or 5 life just to draw a card because he has enough pressure on the table that it just doesn't really matter.
And here's that Thoughtseize for Jessup.
This is
might
I'm
be
dead.
Did you got a sideboard card?
No, this is an I'm dead, and I want to see if you had a... Yeah.
Yeah, what do you got left over? He sees a Murderous Rider and picks him up. And these players are going to game number 3. Do apologize, we are not going to have these sideboards on the overlay. You can check them out on the Cardboard Live extension, though. Really great update to Magic coverage in pretty recent times there. Go ahead and click on that on your screen. You can check out the players' decks and sideboards. Try to get a look at my illegible deck list, see if I can join
Can we?
you.
Yeah, I don't want to go over sideboarding strategies. It's just
All
not
right.
that relevant. And also, I can't read any of these lists, so...
The sideboard is actually the most legible thing.
Okay, fine.
Literally,
we got time to kill.
these are the
Let's
only
do it.
15 cards I can read. All right, so the sideboard for Kevin Therrien looks like 3 self-inflicted wounds, 3 Leyline of the Void, 2 Agonizing Remorse, 2 Aethersphere Harvester, a Kalitas, a Liliana the Last Hope, a Duress, a Legion's End, and an Infinite Obliteration.
Okay. I think stuff like Leyline of the Void or Rest in Peace is kind of a trap in this matchup. Specifically Leyline of the Void, specifically because this deck has like a reasonable amount of removal, but it can also just like play to the battlefield quite well, and it can use its creatures to defend its life total, so you don't really need to exile those permanents. Also, if it's not in your opening hand, it's horrible.
This isn't Jessup's sideboard.
Oh.
This is Therrien's sideboard.
See? And I can't tell because it's...
Well, you have Jessup's
right,
deck
but
list, so
that's not the one you're reading.
I assume you knew that. That's my bad.
It's okay.
You should never assume.
I quit.
So how do you feel about Leyline against Delirium?
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Agonizing Remorse, is that a nice one?
That's fine.
All right. Can exile an Uro.
It's great.
You all right, bud?
Just 2-mana discard spell. I'm embarrassed.
You want to get some ice cream?
Yes, actually.
Do they have that here? Does Dunkin' Donuts do ice cream? I hate Dunkin' Donuts, so I don't know what they do.
I don't know. There's a whole food court upstairs. I'm willing to guess that none of them have ice cream.
We can go get donut.
Simply because
donut.
I want it now.
Some sugary coffee.
Sugary coffee sounds pretty
Sugary
good.
milky coffee.
Okay. Can we skip the sideboarding now? Is that okay?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
What do you want to talk
Thanks,
about?
Dad.
No,
No?
that
Daddy
you can't
Ryan.
do that.
All right, Papa. How about Papa?
That's not better.
How about Father Ryan?
That's kind of has like a religious connotation that I
Yeah.
also don't vibe with.
All right. Classic pile shuffle here. Rob just said gamers.
That's very that's me.
That's accurate.
That's me.
Yeah.
I'm a gamer.
Okay, so the discard spell's coming in. Well, let's actually do it. I'm sorry. All right. So if I'm Kevin Therrien, we're going to be on the draw this game. Self-inflicted wound, even though there's a lot of green creatures in Dan Jessup's deck, not very good here. I would not bring it in. Leyline of the Void shuts down the Delirium stuff, shuts down Euro coming back. Major part of the deck's game plan overall. I would definitely bring it in. Though, I would not mulligan to it. I don't think it's necessary. It's kind of like icing on the cake. If you have a really good start, no need to mulligan. Agonizing Remorse, able to strip and exile Euro, pretty good, and also just a great discard effect. Cletus Trader of Get, kind of like 50-50 on. Liliana Last Hope, I actually kind of like because it chops down Satyr Wayfinders and just allows you to play like a longer game against spot removal. And then there's like Legion's End for the stupid spiders. It's not that big of a deal. That's about it. Maybe the duress comes in too, but there are quite a few creatures in the Sultai Delirium deck. All right, Dan Jessup's side. Are we still doing this?
Players looking at opening hands.
Yeah,
if they mulligan, we can take a peek.
All
Ideally, they start playing some Magic, and this is what I don't like. 12 minutes on the clock. Let's pull Zach Allen. It's not like his match is going to take 100 years.
We actually held Dan Jessup's and Kevin's match here. So they actually, even though it doesn't show it on the clock showing right now is Zach Allen's clock. They actually have a 10-15 minute extension. Not exactly sure. It's somewhere around there. So
It looks like sevens all around. Breeding Pool go for Jessup. See how quickly Therrien comes out of the gates. Swamp go. Not quickly at all.
yeah, no 1-mana play here. No discard, no creature, no Leyline of the Void. I may have thrown this one back. It just depends on what the rest of the start looks like.
Well, looks like Scrap Heap Scrounger. For Jessup, it was a tapped Watery Grave. We'll go back his way. Blooming Marsh, land number 3. Teammate Harlan Fear going to help out here. Going to be an Uro.
We're about to put Harlan in the Gundam. Just let him pilot for the rest. Just let him pilot the deck for the rest of the match.
Uro is going to pick up a tapped Overgrown Tomb, just up to 23, and we'll see how much additional damage Therrien can do. Scrap Heap Scrounger is going to put things back to 20 all, and a second Scrounger shows up.
A reasonable amount of pressure here, even though he didn't have a 1-drop. Just imagine how much different this game would have been with a 1-drop. Obviously, there would have been a little less life from Jessup's side, but like
Our
it
colleague
piles up, you know.
Patrick Sullivan getting real into this match.
Oh, he's watching. He wants to see how Jessup navigates against this fairly aggressive start from Kevin.
Of course, our Krufik shows a Traverse the Ovenwald on top. Shocks for a Breeding Pool. That's only going to do 1 on the balance, Jessup to 19. Passes with 2 mana up.
Looks like he has Grizzly Salvage in hand, but he might also have something like Abrupt Decay.
actually, scratch that. Jessup wasn't sure if he wanted to pass. Now we'll go back to Therrien.
Yeah, the classic case of your go. Wait. What if you want to cast that Sand away from
I
me, bro?
didn't say go. I said your turn. No.
Are they saying boo earns?
No. Money down.
I was saying boo earns.
Back to Kevin Therrien. Courser Crewfix at 2-4. Pretty good against these 3-2 Scrap Heap Scroungers.
Agreed. Definitely going to need some way to clear that out if he wants to get in some real damage.
Fourth Swamp for Therrien. Grasp of Darkness. Goodbye, Courser Crewfix.
He gone.
Traverse the Elvenwald. Concealed once more. Enchantment entering the graveyard for Jessup. Scroungers attack for 6. Abrupt Decay is going to make that 3. Jessup to 16.
Now, he had the option to do that or salvage, but with Traverse the Elvenwald on top, it has so much value here.
Yeah, Instance card type number 3 is most of the way there.
Yeah. Now, if he wants to, too, though, he can just draw the
Traverse.
Traverse the Elvenwald, cast Grizzly Salvage, and then bring back the Euro from the graveyard. So he has a pretty great turn just lined up as is with what's in hand in graveyard, and that doesn't even account for the Traverse. Now, he is going to eat a lot of his graveyard with the Euro if that's the play. So he may want to do the salvage on upkeep so that he doesn't actually draw the Traverse.
That is what he and Fear are discussing. The Traverse is drawn.
Now, this may be a case of maybe we just wait a turn to Euro because there's only 3 power on the other side of the table, and that Scrap Heap Scrounger in the grave can't come back yet.
Salvage sees some lands, a Murderous Rider, and 2 Jace Friends Prodigies. Can pick up any creature or land, so these are all live options.
So right now we got enchantment, creature, instant, land in the grave. So the Traverse is turned on if he wants to cast it right now. Question is, what does he go get? Because he could just go get Spider Queen, Ishkana, the Graph Widow. He's going to keep the Murderous Rider in hand instead of a Jace. I don't love that. I actually kind of like just grabbing Jace. Although, this is actually probably smart from Dan, because the way that this game is gone, you can assume that Kevin's hand has at least 1, maybe 2, or even 3 more spot removal spells in it. Because of how little pressure he actually applied on he didn't play a creature on turn 1, and he hasn't used his extra mana on turn 3 or 4.
Some Murderous Riders picked up. Uro will escape after Jessup shocks. So -2, +3 on the life total. Got to be a little deliberate about how to escape. Remember, this is a Delirium deck, so you want to try to keep close to or at 4 card types in the graveyard.
Right. Now, he did shock, but he gains a 3. Also gets to draw and play Fabled Passage. And he can fetch Forced, but he no longer has Delirium.
Right, he kept a land there, so... Courser, if you kept Abrupt Decay plus Courser, the land would be Delirium.
Right, but he didn't have the Fabled Passage rolled up yet. He actually drew it off the Euro ability.
Right.
Which I actually agree with his keep of the land, because really at that point you need another Dig Spell or a Fabled Passage to hit Delirium again.
The play for Therrien. It's going to be a Rankle. That's going to knock Jessup to 14. Rankle will choose to Edict both players, make both players discard a card. Looks like Urborg discarded for Therrien. And that Murderous Rider that Jessup picked up off the salvage is going to the bin. And it looks like Zach Allen won the standard match. So, gonna pack this one up. Fear, Jessup, and Allain. They're going to advance to 4-0. Allain, Therrien, and Stillman. They're off to a 3-1 start. 239 teams in the field. So 3-1, certainly a fine place to be.
Yep.
4-0, you're very happy.